While I worked for Pennies, my sister received a Mercedes for her Sweet 16. I stood in our driveway at 5:30 a.m., my secondhand Toyota sputtering as I prepared for my shift at the diner, when a flatbed truck rolled up carrying a gleaming white Mercedes convertible with an enormous red bow. Blair squealed from the front door, still in her silk pajamas, while our parents beamed like she had just won the Nobel Prize. Our father actually filmed her reaction on his phone while our mother dabbed tears of joy. Meanwhile, I was heading to serve breakfast to truckers for $2, $13 an hour plus tips, wearing shoes with holes in the soles that I had covered with duct tape. Blair didn't even glance my way as she climbed into her new car, too busy planning which friends to show it to first. I'm Willow, and I just turned 19. That morning, watching my 16-year-old sister get a $40,000 car while I scraped together coins for gas money, something inside me finally snapped, not into tears or despair, but into crystal clear focus. Because while Blair squealed over her gift, I noticed something she didn't. Our father's hand trembling slightly as he handed her the keys, the way our mother kept glancing nervously at the house across the street where the Hendersons lived. They looked like people who had just made a terrible financial decision, not generous parents celebrating their daughter's birthday. Before Blair was born, things were different. I have vague memories of family vacations, of my parents attending my elementary school plays, of birthday parties with cake and presents. But the moment Blair arrived when I was 3, the entire family dynamic shifted. She became the sun, and the rest of us mere planets orbiting her magnificence. Every achievement of hers was celebrated with champagne and social media posts. When she made the JV cheerleading team, they threw a party. When I graduated high school with honors, they took us to Applebee's and spent the entire meal discussing Blair's upcoming Sweet 16 party. The pattern had been consistent for 16 years. Blair got new clothes from the mall while I shopped at Goodwill. Blair got a laptop for school while I used the library computers. Blair took expensive dance lessons while I worked at the grocery store to save for community college. Our parents justified everything with the same tired excuse. You're older, you understand. Blair needs more support right now. The irony was suffocating. Blair, who had never worked a day in her life, apparently needed support more than I did while juggling 2 jobs and classes. That Mercedes represented the final straw. I had been saving every penny from my diner job and my weekend shifts at the grocery store for 3 years. My goal was modest. Enough for tuition at the state university 40 miles away, and maybe a slightly less embarrassing car. My savings account, carefully managed, held exactly $6.847. The Mercedes they just gave Blair cost more than 6 times that amount. Money they claimed not to have when I asked them to co-sign a small student loan last month. We're stretched too thin right now, my father had said, not meeting my eyes. With Blair's activities and everything, we just can't take on more financial obligations. 2 weeks later, they apparently found $40,000 under a couch cushion. I drove to the diner in silence, my rage transforming into something colder and more calculating. The morning rush was brutal as always. Coffee refills, complicated breakfast orders, customers who thought a $2 tip on a $30 check was generous. My feet ached, my back screamed, but I smiled and called everyone honey because that's what kept the tips flowing. During my break, I sat in my car and did something I had been avoiding for months. I logged into the family cell phone account that I still had access to because I helped my technology-challenged parents set it up years ago. I wasn't looking for anything specific, just curious about what my parents were hiding. What I found made my blood run cold. Dozens of messages between my parents about the Blair Fund and keeping it quiet from Willow. Bank statements showing large transfers from accounts I didn't recognize. Photos of jewelry and designer items that I had never seen my mother wear. And most damningly, a text from my father to my mother from 3 months ago. If we pull from Willow's college account again, she'll notice eventually. But Blair's party can't be anything less than spectacular. Everyone will be watching. My college account, the one my grandmother had set up for me before she died when I was 10. The account I was told had run out when I was 15. They had been stealing from me for years. I sat in that diner parking lot, my hands shaking, reading message after message detailing how my parents had systematically diverted money meant for my education to fund Blair's lifestyle. The designer clothes, the cheerleading competitions in other states, the professional photography sessions for her social media, even her braces that were supposedly covered by insurance. All of it came from money that was supposed to be mine. The most sickening part was the casualness of it. Willow won't know the difference, my mother had texted. She's always been the responsible one. She'll figure it out. As if my responsibility was punishment enough to justify their theft. When my shift ended at 2 p.m., I didn't go home. Instead, I drove to the bank where my grandmother had set up the account, the same bank where my parents did their banking. I had the account number from the statements I had photographed. I had my grandmother's death certificate in my lockbox at home, a document I had kept for sentimental reasons but was about to become very useful. The banker, a kind woman named Patricia who remembered my grandmother, pulled up the account history. What she showed me was worse than I imagined. My grandmother had deposited $50,000 for my education, with strict instructions that it could only be accessed for college expenses. Over the past 4 years, my parents had systematically withdrawn nearly all of it, forging my signature on withdrawal slips, claiming emergency educational expenses. "I'm so sorry," Patricia said, her face genuinely distressed. "If we had known these weren't authorized, we never would have processed them. But your parents are joint account holders with you until you turn 21, and the signatures looked legitimate. Can you print out every transaction from the past 4 years?" I asked, my voice eerily calm. "Every withdrawal, every forged signature, everything." She hesitated. That would be a lot of pages. "May I ask why?" "Because I'm going to need it as evidence," I said simply. "My parents stole my inheritance, and I'm going to make sure everyone knows exactly what they did." Patricia's expression shifted from sympathy to understanding. She printed everything. Hundreds of pages documenting systematic theft, every forged signature, every false claim of educational expense, every dollar stolen from a dead woman's gift to her granddaughter. I spent that evening in the public library, scanning every document into cloud storage. Then I created copies on 3 separate USB drives. I organized everything by date, by amount, by the specific lies my parents had told. I built a case against them with the same careful precision they had used to steal from me. My phone buzzed constantly. Messages from my mother asking where I was, telling me Blair's boyfriend was coming for dinner and I needed to help cook. Messages from Blair demanding I pick up her favorite coffee drink on my way home. Messages from my father asking if I could cover their car insurance this month since I was doing so well with my jobs. I ignored them all, because while they sat at home in the house I helped pay for, eating food I helped buy, I was systematically building the case that would destroy them. And unlike them, I wouldn't need to steal or lie. I just needed the truth, documented and irrefutable. The Mercedes they gave Blair wasn't a gift. It was evidence. Evidence of misplaced priorities, of financial fraud, of parents who valued appearance over integrity. And I was going to use every gleaming inch of it to show the world exactly who Reed and Georgia really were. As I drove home that night, passing the dealership where the Mercedes came from, I allowed myself a small smile. They thought I was too busy working to notice, too responsible to cause problems, too beaten down to fight back. They were about to learn just how wrong they were. When I walked through the front door at 9 p.m., Blair was sprawled on the couch in the living room, scrolling through her phone and laughing at something. The Mercedes keys sat on the coffee table like a trophy. Our mother was in the kitchen preparing Blair's favorite dessert, chocolate lava cake, despite it being a Tuesday night with no special occasion beyond the fact that Blair wanted it. "Where have you been?" my mother demanded, not looking up from whisking. "Blair needed you to help her set up her new car's Bluetooth." "I was working," I said flatly. "You know, that thing I do to pay for my gas and food and tuition." Blair finally glanced up from her phone. "You're so dramatic, Willow. Mom and Dad would help you if you just asked nicely instead of being bitter all the time." The audacity nearly stole my breath. I had asked, dozens of times, for help with textbooks, with car repairs, with lab fees. The answer was always the same. "We don't have it right now. Can you manage on your own?" Meanwhile, Blair's walk-in closet looked like a department store. "Actually," I said, keeping my voice pleasant, "I wanted to talk to you both about something. Financial planning." My mother's hand froze mid-whisk. "What about it?" "Well, I'm thinking about my future. College expenses, living costs, all that. I was looking at my finances today and realized I don't have as much saved as I thought I should." I watched my mother's face carefully. A tiny muscle twitched near her eye. "Do either of you know what happened to the college fund Grandma set up for me?" The kitchen fell silent except for the timer ticking down on the oven. My mother resumed whisking with forced casualness. "That fund ran out years ago, sweetie. We told you that. The market crashed, remember?" "Right," I said slowly. "The market crash. When exactly was that?" "Oh, I don't remember the specific date," she said, waving her hand dismissively. "Your father handled all that." "Reed," she called toward the den where he was watching television. "Willow has questions about her college fund." My father appeared, and I watched his face carefully as I repeated my question. He was a terrible liar. Always had been. His left eye twitched when he was nervous, a tell I had noticed since childhood. "The fund depleted around 2020, he said, his eye already twitching. "Market volatility. Nothing we could do about it. These things happen." "That's so sad," Blair chimed in from the couch. "Not sad at all. But that's why you have to work hard and earn your own money, right? Can't depend on handouts." I stared at my sister, lounging in her designer athleisure wear, speaking to me about handouts while sitting 3 feet from a $40,000 car she didn't earn. The irony was so thick I could choke on it. "You're absolutely right, Blair," I said with a smile that didn't reach my eyes. "Handouts are terrible. People should definitely earn what they get." Over the next week, I maintained my normal routine while quietly gathering more evidence. I befriended Patricia at the bank, who felt genuinely awful about what my parents had done. She couldn't give me information directly, but she could confirm what I already knew when I presented her with my theories. Hypothetically, I asked during one visit, if someone's parents were joint account holders and systematically withdrew money while forging the minor's signature, would that be fraud? Patricia's expression was grim. Hypothetically, that would be embezzlement and forgery, both felonies. The fact that it was a minor's money and a grandparent's bequest would make it worse in court. I also started documenting everything at home. Every time my parents spent lavishly on Blair, I took photos. the new iPad for her schoolwork, the professional makeup kit for her YouTube channel that had 17 subscribers, the spring break trip to Cancun they were planning for her and 3 friends. I recorded the costs, screenshot their social media posts bragging about being blessed and grateful for family. My father's business partner, Jasper, came to dinner one night. He owned a construction company where my father worked as an accountant. Over wine that I had bought with my grocery store employee discount, Jasper mentioned something interesting. Reed, I have to say that Mercedes for Blair was incredibly generous, especially with how tight things have been at the company. He smiled, oblivious to the tension his words created. When you asked for that advance on your salary, I worried you were in real financial trouble. Glad to see it was just for something special. My mother's wine glass paused halfway to her lips. My father's face flushed. Well, you know how it is with kids, he said quickly. Always something. Oh, absolutely, Jasper continued, warming to his topic. My daughter's sweet 16 is next year, and my wife is already planning, though I told her we're keeping it reasonable. Can't be taking salary advances for parties when we've got college to save for, right? The room fell silent. I watched my father's face cycle through emotions. Embarrassment, anger, calculation. He had taken a salary advance to buy Blair a Mercedes, while telling me he was too financially stretched to help with my education. After Jasper left, my parents retreated to their bedroom for a whispered argument I could hear through the walls. She knows something, my mother hissed. All those questions about the college fund. We need to be more careful. She doesn't know anything, my father insisted. She's 19 and works at a diner. What's she going to do, hire a lawyer? With what money? They were partially right. I couldn't afford a lawyer, but I didn't need one yet. What I needed was more evidence and perfect timing. The next day, Blair's boyfriend Declan came over. He was 22, worked at his father's car dealership, and thought he was God's gift to the world. I was in the kitchen making myself dinner after my shift when I overheard them talking in the living room. Your parents are so cool, Declan said. My old man would never drop 40 grand on a car for me. What's their secret? Blair giggled. They've been saving for years. Plus my dad got this big bonus at work. And honestly, I think they feel bad about spending so much on Willow's stuff when she was younger. So now it's my turn. I froze, wooden spoon suspended over my pot of ramen. Spending so much on my stuff? I wore shoes with duct tape. I bought my clothes at thrift stores. My laptop was a 7-year-old Chromebook that crashed twice a day. What exactly had they spent on me? That's fair, Declan agreed. Older kids always get everything first. At least you're getting yours now. I walked into the living room and they both looked up guiltily. What did I get? I asked Blair directly. When I was younger, what did Mom and Dad spend so much money on for me? Blair's face flushed. You know, like your activities and stuff. What activities? I played soccer for 1 season in 3rd grade. What else? I don't know, Willow. I was like 3 years old. Stop interrogating me. She grabbed Declan's hand. Come on, let's go for a drive in my new car. As they left, my mother emerged from her bedroom. You need to stop making your sister uncomfortable in her own home. Her own home, I repeated slowly. The home I contribute $300 a month to for rent. The home where I buy my own food and pay my own phone bill. That home? You're an adult, my mother said coldly. Adults contribute to households. And Blair? Blair is still in high school. When you were in high school, we supported you too. The lies were so constant, so reflexive, that I almost admired their commitment to the delusion. But I was done playing their game. It was time to start playing mine. I spent the next 3 weeks working my usual shifts while carefully executing my plan. Every piece had to fit perfectly. Every move had to be calculated. My parents had spent years building their facade of the perfect family. I was going to dismantle it brick by brick. Step 1 was financial documentation. I requested my credit report and discovered something infuriating but useful. My parents had opened 2 credit cards in my name when I turned 18. Both were maxed out. The statements showed purchases at expensive restaurants, jewelry stores, and department stores I had never stepped foot in. More fraud, more evidence. I filed identity theft reports with the credit bureaus and the police. The officer who took my statement, a weary-looking woman named Officer Chen, raised her eyebrows when I explained the situation. Your own parents? She asked. My own parents, I confirmed. I have documentation of everything. The forged withdrawals from my college fund, the credit cards opened in my name, all of it. This is going to get ugly, she warned. Family cases always do. You sure you want to go through with this? I thought about Blair's Mercedes, about my mother's dismissive comments, about my father's lies. I've never been more sure of anything. Step 2 was building my own financial independence. I met with a financial advisor at a different bank, one my parents didn't use. She helped me open accounts they had no access to. I changed my direct deposit from the diner and grocery store to the new accounts. Every penny I earned now went somewhere my parents couldn't touch. I also started looking for a new place to live. The $300 monthly I paid my parents for rent would cover a room in a shared house near campus. I found a place through a classmate, a small room in a house with 3 other students. Not glamorous, but mine and safe from my parents' financial parasitism. Step 3 was gathering character witnesses. I reconnected with my high school teachers, my employers, anyone who had seen me struggle while Blair was spoiled. I told them I was applying for scholarships and needed references. What I was actually doing was building a network of people who could testify to the disparate treatment if needed. Mrs. Henderson from across the street, who had watched me grow up, was particularly helpful. I've always wondered why you worked so hard while Blair seemed to have everything handed to her, she told me over tea in her kitchen. Your grandmother would be heartbroken if she knew what happened to the money she left you. She's going to know soon, I promised. Everyone is. During this time, Blair's behavior reached new heights of entitlement. She wrecked the Mercedes 3 weeks after getting it, rear-ending someone while texting. My parents paid the $5,000 deductible without blinking and got her a rental car while hers was being repaired. These things happen, my mother said when I pointed out they had refused to help me with my $200 car repair last month. Blair is still learning to drive. She's had her license for 6 months. Well, she's still adjusting to having such a nice car. It's harder to drive than your little Toyota. The logic was non-existent, but they believed it, or pretended to. At this point, I couldn't tell the difference. I started documenting every conversation, every dismissal, every instance of favoritism. I kept a journal with dates, times, direct quotes. I backed everything up to the cloud. I was building an airtight case, not just of financial fraud, but of systematic parental neglect and preference. My opportunity for the next phase came when my parents announced they were throwing Blair a second Sweet 16 party for family members who had missed the first one. This party would be at an expensive country club with a live band, professional catering, and a guest list of over 100 people. We're doing a slideshow of Blair's childhood, my mother announced at dinner. I've been going through old photos. It's so sweet seeing her grow up. What about photos of me? I asked. Well, this is Blair's party, honey. It's about her. Right, when you threw me a party for graduating high school. Oh, wait, you didn't. Was that also about Blair? My father's jaw tightened. Your attitude lately has been unacceptable. We've given you a roof over your head, food to eat, and this is how you show gratitude? A roof I pay rent for, I said calmly. Food I buy myself. And gratitude? For what exactly? For stealing my college fund? For opening credit cards in my name? For spending thousands on Blair while I work 2 jobs? The silence that fell over the table was arctic. Blair's eyes widened. My mother's face went white. My father stood up so abruptly his chair fell backward. How dare you, he said, his voice shaking. How dare you accuse us of stealing from you? We've sacrificed everything for you girls. Then you won't mind showing me the documentation of where my grandmother's $50,000 went, I said, pulling out my phone and opening the photos I had taken of the bank statements. Because according to these records, it went to jewelry, vacations, and a luxury car, none of which were for my education. My mother snatched the phone from my hand, her face twisted with rage. You went behind our backs to the bank? You've been spying on our finances? They're my finances, I corrected. My money, my grandmother's gift to me. That you stole. Blair burst into tears, a convenient tactic she used whenever she was uncomfortable. Why are you being so mean to Mom and Dad? They love us. They love you. They love you, I corrected, taking my phone back from my mother. I'm just the ATM and live-in maid who's supposed to be grateful for scraps. I walked to my room and started packing. Not everything. Just essentials. I would come back for the rest later, with witnesses and possibly police escort if needed. But I was done living in a house where I was treated like a criminal for wanting what was rightfully mine. My father followed me. If you walk out that door, you're not welcome back. We've put up with your attitude for months, but this is the final straw. Good, I said, zipping my duffel bag, because I'm filing criminal charges against you and Mom for embezzlement, forgery, and identity theft. The police report is already filed. The evidence is already documented, and every penny you stole from me, I'm going to take back with interest. His face went from red to pale in seconds. You wouldn't. We're your parents. You stopped being my parents the day you decided Blair's comfort was more important than my future. I shouldered my bag. See you in court. As I walked out, I heard my mother on the phone with someone. Her voice panicked. Blair was still crying dramatically. My father was shouting something about ungrateful children. I didn't look back. I moved into the shared house that night. My new roommates, all students like me, helped me carry in my few belongings. The room was small. The furniture was secondhand, but it was mine and paid for with money I had earned. The next morning, I went to campus and met with the financial aid office. With my new status as an independent student no longer receiving parental support, I qualified for significantly more aid. Grants, subsidized loans, work-study programs. The financial aid counselor looked at my documentation and my bank statements showing my income and expenses. You're working 40 hours a week while taking 15 credit hours? She asked, impressed. That's incredibly disciplined. I didn't have a choice, I said simply. My parents decided funding my sister's lifestyle was more important than my education. She helped me fill out new paperwork, adjust my status, and apply for emergency funding. Within 2 weeks, I had enough financial aid to cover tuition and books for the next semester. I wouldn't be rich, but I would be educated. The criminal complaint moved forward faster than I expected. The district attorney's office assigned a prosecutor who specialized in family financial crimes. When she reviewed my evidence, her expression was grim. This is one of the most clear-cut cases I've seen, she told me. The forged signatures alone are enough for multiple felony counts. Add in the credit card fraud and your parents are looking at serious jail time. I want them prosecuted, I said firmly. No plea deals, no reduced charges. They stole from a dead woman's bequest to her granddaughter. They need to face full consequences. She nodded approvingly. I like your spine. Most people cave when it's family. This is going to be hard on you, though. Are you prepared for that? I thought about every dismissal. Every time I was told Blair needed more support. Every lie about the college fund. I've been preparing for this my whole life. The preliminary hearing was scheduled for 3 weeks before Blair's second Sweet 16 party. Perfect timing as far as I was concerned. My parents hired an expensive defense attorney, though how they paid for him was a mystery given their claimed financial struggles. Probably another credit card in someone else's name. The courtroom was smaller than I expected, more bureaucratic than dramatic. My parents sat with their attorney, both dressed in their best clothes, playing the role of respectable middle-class parents being persecuted by their ungrateful daughter. Blair wasn't there. She was still a minor and not required to attend. The prosecutor presented the evidence methodically. Bank statements showing $50,000 withdrawn over 4 years. Examples of forged signatures, which a handwriting expert confirmed, didn't match my actual signature from school records. Credit card statements in my name showing purchases I couldn't possibly have made, including a $500 dinner at a steakhouse on a date when I was verifiably working my shift at the diner. My parents' attorney tried to argue that as joint account holders, they had every right to use the money. The prosecutor countered that the account had specific educational restrictions, and that my grandmother's will explicitly stated the money was for my college expenses only. Using it for anything else was a breach of fiduciary duty at minimum, embezzlement at maximum. Furthermore, the prosecutor added, the credit cards opened in Miss Willow's name without her knowledge or consent constitute clear identity theft. The defendants have shown a pattern of financial exploitation of their adult daughter while simultaneously providing extravagant gifts to their minor daughter, suggesting deliberate favoritism and financial abuse. When it was my turn to testify, I kept my emotions in check and stuck to facts. Dates, amounts, conversations. I didn't cry or plead. I simply told the truth in a clear, steady voice. The judge listened carefully, taking notes. My parents' attorney tried to paint me as a vindictive daughter, angry about normal family financial decisions. Isn't it true that you're upset your parents bought your sister a car? I'm upset they stole $50,000 from me to fund a lifestyle they claimed they couldn't afford, I corrected. The car is just evidence of where my money went. You have no proof that money went to your sister's car specifically. Actually, I do. I pulled out my phone and showed the timeline I had created. The final large withdrawal from my college fund was March 15th, $15,000. The Mercedes was purchased March 18th with a $15,000 down payment. Same amount, 3 days apart. The courtroom fell silent. The attorney shuffled his papers, looking for a different angle. Your parents provided you with housing, food, support. Surely that counts for something. I paid $300 monthly in rent. I bought my own food. I received no financial support for college. Meanwhile, my sister received free housing, free food, a car, designer clothes, and private lessons for various activities, all funded with money that was legally mine. The judge cut off the attorney's next question. I've heard enough. There's clearly sufficient evidence to proceed to trial. The defendants are ordered to cease any access to accounts in the plaintiff's name and to refrain from any contact with the plaintiff except through legal counsel. My mother gasped. My father's face went red. Their attorney whispered urgently to them, probably warning them to stay quiet. As we left the courtroom, I felt light for the first time in months. The truth was on record. The legal system was on my side. My parents could no longer pretend they had done nothing wrong. That evening, my mother violated the no-contact order by calling me 17 times and sending dozens of texts. How could you do this to your family? One read, Blair is traumatized. She cries every night. You're destroying her Sweet 16 celebration. I forwarded every message to the prosecutor, who forwarded them to the judge. The next day, my parents were back in court for a contempt hearing. The judge was not amused. I gave explicit instructions about no contact, she said coldly. Mrs. Georgia, do you have an explanation for these messages? My mother dabbed at her eyes with a tissue. I'm a mother. I was trying to reach out to my daughter to repair our relationship. By telling her she's destroying her sister's party, the judge read from the messages. By calling her selfish and ungrateful, that's not reconciliation, that's harassment. The judge added additional penalties, a formal restraining order and a warning that any further contact would result in immediate jail time for contempt. My parents left the courtroom looking shell-shocked. 3 days before Blair's country club party, the story broke. One of the court reporters had connected the dots and written an article about local parents charged with embezzling their daughter's college fund to buy their younger daughter a Mercedes. They didn't use names because I was the victim of identity theft. But in our small town, everyone knew exactly who it was. The social media response was swift and brutal. People who had admired my parents' apparent generosity now saw them as frauds and thieves. The country club where Blair's party was scheduled called to discuss concerns. Several family members who had been invited posted publicly that they wouldn't be attending an event funded by stolen money. Blair's social media, which she had filled with photos of her Mercedes and excited posts about her upcoming party, became a battlefield. Comments poured in. That car was bought with stolen money. Your parents are criminals. How does it feel to benefit from your sister's college fund? She tried deleting comments, then limiting who could comment, then finally making her accounts private. But screenshots lived forever, and people shared them widely. My father lost his job. Jasper, his business partner, had been horrified to learn about the embezzlement and couldn't keep him on staff. I have a reputation to maintain, he told my father in an email that was later filed as evidence. I can't have someone convicted of financial crimes handling company finances. The Mercedes was repossessed. Turns out my parents had financed part of it with yet another loan they couldn't actually afford, and they had already missed 2 payments. Blair came home from school to find a tow truck hooking up her beloved car while neighbors watched. My mother tried to stop it, screaming about how this was a gift, how they were paid up. How dare they? The repo man simply showed her the paperwork proving otherwise and drove away with the car. The video of my mother's meltdown, filmed by a neighbor's security camera, went viral in our town's Facebook groups. The country club party was officially canceled, not postponed, canceled. The club's board had voted that hosting an event for a family under criminal investigation for embezzling a dead woman's bequest would be inconsistent with club values. They refunded the deposit but kept the cancellation fee. Blair, who had spent weeks planning her dress, her entrance, her choreographed first dance, was devastated. For the first time in her life, she faced consequences for benefiting from my parents' choices, and she hated it. She tried to call me, also violating the restraining order. I let it go to voicemail. Willow, please, she sobbed into the recording. You're ruining my life. I didn't know about the college fund. I didn't know any of it. Please drop the charges. Please let me have my party. I'll do anything. I saved the voicemail and forwarded it to my attorney, but I didn't respond. Blair's tears, her pleas, her dramatic suffering meant nothing to me anymore. She had lived a life of luxury while watching me struggle, and she had never once questioned it or stood up for me. Her willful ignorance was its own form of complicity. The preliminary trial date was set for 2 weeks after what would have been Blair's party. My parents' attorney tried one last time to negotiate a plea deal. They would pay restitution if I dropped the criminal charges. Not a chance, I told my prosecutor. I want a trial. I want it on public record exactly what they did. And I want the maximum sentence. She smiled grimly. You're going to make an excellent attorney someday. That spine of steel will serve you well. The trial lasted 3 days. 3 days of watching my parents squirm as their carefully constructed facade crumbled under the weight of documented evidence. The prosecutor was merciless, presenting every forged signature, every illegal withdrawal, every credit card charge in my name that I never authorized. My grandmother's attorney, who had helped her set up the trust, testified about her explicit wishes. Mrs. Eleanor was very clear, he said, his voice thick with emotion. Every penny was to go toward Willow's education. She made me put it in writing multiple times. She was worried that Willow's parents might try to use it for other purposes. He looked directly at my parents. She was right to worry. The defense tried to paint my parents as loving but misguided, people who made poor financial decisions under stress. But the prosecutor destroyed that narrative by showing the timeline. Expensive dinners, jewelry purchases, Blair's endless activities, all while telling me they couldn't help with my $50 textbook. Blair was called as a witness, and watching her on the stand was almost satisfying enough by itself. She tried to play innocent, claiming she had no idea where the money for her lifestyle came from, but the prosecutor had done her homework. You posted on social media thanking your parents for always being so generous, the prosecutor read from exhibits. You posted photos of your Mercedes with the caption, "Blessed to have parents who support my dreams." Were you unaware that your dreams were being funded by your sister's stolen college money? Blair's face flushed. I just thought my parents worked hard and wanted to give me nice things. Your father was an accountant making $60,000 a year. Your mother didn't work outside the home. Where did you think $40,000 for a car came from? I didn't think about it. No, the prosecutor agreed coldly. You didn't, because thinking about it would have meant acknowledging your sister's sacrifice. The jury deliberated for 4 hours. When they returned, the forewoman read the verdict in a clear, firm voice. Guilty on all counts. Embezzlement, forgery, identity theft. Every charge stuck. My mother wept theatrically. My father stared straight ahead, his face a mask of shock. Blair, sitting in the gallery, buried her face in her hands. I sat perfectly still, feeling nothing but cold satisfaction. At sentencing 2 weeks later, the judge showed no mercy. The defendants systematically stole from their own daughter, violating a trust established by a deceased family member specifically to ensure the victim's educational future. They forged documents, opened fraudulent accounts, and showed no remorse until caught. This represents not just financial crime, but a profound betrayal of parental duty. She sentenced my father to 3 years in prison and my mother to 2 years, plus 5 years probation for each. Additionally, they were ordered to pay full restitution of the $50,000 plus interest and penalties, totaling nearly $80,000. Their wages would be garnished, their assets seized if necessary. Furthermore, the judge continued, the court orders the defendants to have no contact with the victim for a minimum of 10 years following their release from prison. Any attempt to contact her or to benefit from her success in any way will result in additional criminal charges. The bailiff led my parents away in handcuffs. Blair tried to run to them, but court security stopped her. Her wailing echoed through the courthouse hallway. I walked out into the sunlight and took my first deep breath as a truly free person. No more parents stealing from me. No more being the forgotten daughter. No more watching Blair get everything while I got nothing. The restitution money came in pieces over the next months as my parents' assets were liquidated. The house they had remortgaged multiple times to fund Blair's lifestyle was sold. My mother's jewelry, including pieces she claimed were family heirlooms, went to auction. My father's retirement account was emptied. Blair moved in with our aunt, my mother's sister, who had always been skeptical of my parents' financial claims. Within 2 weeks of living there, Blair learned what real budgets felt like. No designer clothes, no expensive outings, no new car. She got a part-time job at a fast food restaurant and actually had to save money for things she wanted. I heard through mutual acquaintances that she hated it. Hated working, hated having less, hated that people at school knew her parents were in prison for stealing from her sister. Her social media presence vanished completely. The girl who had posted daily photos of her blessed life couldn't face showing the reality of her fall. With the restitution money, I paid off the fraudulent credit cards that had destroyed my credit score. I paid my tuition in full for the next 2 years. I bought myself a reliable used car, nothing fancy, but something that didn't require duct tape and prayer to operate. And I put the rest in a new education fund, this time in an account only I could access. The state university accepted me for the fall semester. My financial aid package, combined with the restitution money and my savings from work, meant I could focus on my studies without working 40 hours a week. I could actually be a college student instead of an exhausted employee who occasionally attended classes. My first semester, I took a criminal justice course. The professor asked us to write about a personal experience with the legal system. I wrote about my parents' trial, about gathering evidence, about learning to fight for myself when no one else would. I got an A+ and a note from the professor. Have you considered law school? I had not, but I started to. Blair tried to contact me once, 6 months after the sentencing. A long email full of apologies and explanations. She claimed she really hadn't known where the money came from, that our parents had hidden it from her, that she was sorry for benefiting from my stolen inheritance. I read the email once, then deleted it without responding. Her apologies meant nothing. She had eyes and a brain. She had chosen not to question why I worked 2 jobs while she drove a Mercedes. She had chosen comfort over curiosity, benefit over responsibility. The restraining order meant I didn't have to forgive her, didn't have to give her closure, didn't have to help her feel better about her role in my suffering, and I chose not to. 2 years after the trial, I'm a senior at the state university, majoring in criminal justice with a minor in accounting. The irony of studying my father's former profession while preparing to prosecute people like him isn't lost on me, and I savor it. I graduated with honors, made Dean's List every semester, and received 3 separate scholarship offers for law school. My professors write glowing recommendations describing my work ethic and analytical skills. Nobody mentions my family unless I bring them up, which I rarely do. My parents were released from prison last month after serving their full sentences. They're living in a small apartment in a different town, both working minimum wage jobs because no one will hire convicted embezzlers for anything involving money. My father stocks shelves at a warehouse. My mother cleans offices at night. I know this because the restitution garnishment means I receive detailed reports on their employment and finances. Every month, a small amount is deducted from their paychecks and deposited into my account. It will take them 18 years at their current income to pay back what they stole, and every payment is a reminder of their crime. Blair graduated high school with mediocre grades and no scholarship offers. She's working full-time at a retail store and taking community college classes part-time. Her social media remains private, but mutual acquaintances tell me she's doing okay and working hard. The golden child learned what work actually means. She'll never have what I have now: a full-ride scholarship to a prestigious law school starting this fall, a resume full of internships and academic achievements, and a future built on my own merit instead of stolen money. That knowledge sustains me more than any apology she could offer. I recently spoke at a victims advocacy conference about financial abuse within families. The room was packed with people who had experienced similar betrayals. After my speech, a woman approached me with tears in her eyes. My parents did the same thing, she said. Stole my college fund for my brother's wedding. I thought I was the only one, that I was wrong to be angry. Thank you for showing me I'm not. I gave her my attorney's contact information and a list of resources. Helping others fight back became my new purpose. The law school I'll be attending is 3 states away. Far enough that I'll never accidentally run into my parents or Blair. Far enough to build a completely new life untainted by their choices. Close enough that if they ever violate the restraining order, local authorities can respond immediately. I'm not cruel enough to hope my family suffers forever, but I'm also not generous enough to care if they do. They made their choices. They stole from a dead woman's gift to her granddaughter because they valued appearance over integrity. Blair's comfort over my future. Lies over truth. They taught me valuable lessons, just not the ones they intended. They taught me that family isn't defined by blood, but by loyalty and respect. They taught me that some betrayals are unforgivable, and that forgiveness isn't mandatory for healing. They taught me that justice, while slow, is possible. Most importantly, they taught me exactly what kind of parent never to become. Last week, I received a letter from my grandmother's attorney. Apparently, she had established a second trust I knew nothing about, one that would activate when I graduated from law school. Another $50,000, this time protected by even more stringent controls, explicitly stating that only I could access it, and only after providing proof of graduation. Your grandmother knew your parents well, the attorney wrote. She hoped you would never need this second fund, but she wanted you to know she believed in you. I sat in my small apartment, my own apartment, paid for with money I earned, and cried for the first time since the trial. Not from sadness, but from gratitude for a grandmother who had loved me enough to protect my future even after death, and from pride for the woman I had become despite my parents' best efforts to keep me down. The Mercedes is long gone, sold to pay restitution. Blair's designer clothes were donated to charity. My parents' house belongs to someone else now, but I still have what I always had: myself, my determination, and my grandmother's unwavering faith that I would survive and thrive. They tried to steal my future. Instead, they gave me the strength to build one they could never take away. And that, more than any revenge, is the sweetest victory of all.